Okay, we're going to critique segment 3, which is the last segment. We're going to do 3, 4, 1, 2, and 5. 3, 4, 1, 2, 5. 3, start us off.
Okay, in general, we thought that third session was probably the best of the three in terms of content and everything else. However, a couple of points that we think could have been, particularly near the end when he was summarizing things for the client to do, he might have suggested that he take some notes so he doesn't forget. The other thing, too, is when he started talking about our workshops and seminars, he probably should have put Start Smart first, because that's the one we really want the people to go to. Somewhat feeling that maybe Jim was lecturing a little too much. There didn't seem to be too much of a participation by Roger.
Okay.
Our group would also concur that this was the best of the three segments. The primary reason being that Jim and Roger got into a back and forth dialogue of things that Roger could use to understand going in this business. And Jim was very specific about making sure that Roger had some things to do, even though Roger didn't take notes. And that was noted by our group, too, is how serious is Roger about this? He's letting everything kind of slide on by, except looking up a definition or two. The other thing that was discussed is that Roger's concept of the business should have been perhaps challenged a little bit. In that, okay, you want to serve just hot Italian sandwiches. Perhaps a little bit more about, are you going to serve dessert? Are you going to serve, what kind of, drinks are you going to serve? Things like that to get, again, dialoguing to think about the type of business that you're going into. Good discussions about expanding the capacity, but not a discussion until, I think, toward the real end about how to maximize revenue. And that's when you got into your 80%, 100%, 80% type thing. But how to round it out. And again, Duncan talking about the feasibility study, that's the sort of thing that would be prime. But once again, I think the group said, this guy's too early to be launching into the specifics of a business plan. It was suggested that really what needs to be done is understand and challenge what he wants to do, and then give him some industry sources to go do some research on. Fastandcasual.com, some other places to go see and do some research, and then come back and let's talk about, has your concept changed? Now let's talk about what you really want to do and putting a plan together to do it. But more the basic business research. Did I miss anything? I'm sure I did, but anyhow.
I think your comment about challenge is right on. Having sat in with Jim in a lot of co-counseling, he is at the top of the list in terms of challenging it just in surface here. But yeah, don't just accept the client's model. The model could be improved, modified, or whatever. That's a good point. 5? I'm sorry.
A couple of observations we made. The counselor spoke about a mile a minute, obviously trying to keep up the schedule, did very little listening to the client. Not once did I hear the counselor ask the client if he understood any of what he was saying. The counselor was presenting tasks about a mile a minute. All kinds of tasks that had to be done, studies to be done. Again, didn't write anything down, and I wonder if the client even understood any of it, let alone remembered it.
I think what I can take away from this thing is that there is a different approach that we all take when we sit down with a client. Jim has his way, everybody else does too, but you eventually have to get to the basic that we all talk about, and that's the business plan. So how you approach that, I guess, is one thing where future seminars of this type can stress. Maybe we get a uniform, maybe we don't, but the point is that it is the backbone of what we counsel on. We felt good that he emphasized research and homework. Homework is one thing we may all, I know I forget about it a lot, but to tell them that they have to do the job, but necessarily to report back so I can grade you, type of thing. But it was a good session, I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Couple of things that happened outside the role playing. Jim steps out of the room. Jim makes out a 641.3. He goes directly to the E3 system. Doesn't wait till he gets home, or waits a couple of days. He goes and gets that 641.3 entered at that point in time. He makes a note in his calendar to call the client back 3 or 4 days before the next appointment to get the dialogue going. That happens all outside the role playing. The role players would like to get up for a couple of minutes and just make a few points. Roger?
Thank you. Let me put my other persona on for a moment now. As a pedagogical experience, I was impressed by all that happened. I think this was a great teaching tool to introduce all of us to what we should be doing. We learned by the observation that all the groups were developed, and sharing it, I think, was just terrific. The value of teams and discussions here is enormous. I have to compliment everyone on that. The other thing that I think occurs out of this, and you made the point, several of you have, is that we all have our individual strengths and weaknesses. And as long as we recognize that and know where to go to overcome those weaknesses, I think that's going to make us very successful. And the third point, I want to reinforce what Bob just said. This guy had the tough job. All I had to do was be here or just play act, right? He had the real tough job, and I think he deserves a hand for it, really. The other thing to reinforce what Bob said, the secret of his success, because he does have more continuing relationships than any of us, is this level of commitment. This is a commitment that I think the more we reinforce it, the more we're going to see our strengths and our values grow. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I must say that the constraints of what we had to do, and that was well formed, and we orchestrated this, and it's come out different every time, which I think is good. But it did hamper my style, I gotta admit that. Breaking it up and then starting again, or where was I, and how do I get this thing going, and
Okay, this concludes the class. We'd like to get some work from you. We need help. We want to give this class regularly. We want to make it better. We want to look at this class as a continuous improvement environment, where next time we do this, we become better than what we did it this time. We had some suggestions. Ray has taken some notes. The notes are going to be published. Hopefully we'll use that as a reference tool. But please look at your evaluation sheets, and please put some energy into it. Don't just check the boxes, but make some notes, write some sentences. They will all help us give you a better class about a year from now. Thank you.